Okay, hey model railroaders. So we're going to do that elusive step that I've been trying to do for a little while, which is some varnishing. So I was told the other day, I went into one of my local hobby shops, and they said what I'm supposed to do is a 4:10 ratio. I didn't ask them which one it is, but I think it's going to be 10 parts of the gloss varnish to 4 parts of thinner. This is my best cup that I have, and then I'm going to go ahead and put it in my airbrush. So let's see what we can do here. Okay, so that's 30. So if that's 30, I need 12 drops of the thinner. So little chemistry, if people don't know, a drop, an actual drop out of an eyedropper or anything like that, a drop of water or a drop of liquid is an actual known quantity. So that means that, you know, if you wanted X amount of milliliters, or you had to do a this or a that, that if you do drops and you count out the drops, it's the same as being able to do it any other way, right? If you measure it out and then measure it out. So if you do drops, be advised that a drop is an actual measure in chemistry. Let's see if this will even come through the airbrush. That's the big question. And I am seeing some stuff come out. There we go. That's good. So it looks like our mix might work. So let's go ahead and just hit these. So what I'm going to do is just varnish put in a clear coat. I don't need to put much on this, right? I just want to make sure that I lock in what I got so far. If you're doing varnish and you've got the airbrush, it's a 4 parts of thinner to 10 parts of varnish. So let us get this out and let's spray this sucker. Okay, so the varnish was a new thing. Instead of using a filler or anything like that, the varnish just actually puts a nice coat over everything. The cool thing is since this was matte and the paint was matte, it didn't really change the color, because the color was never bright to begin with. So it kind of went on easy. The smell was really not there as bad as the Tamiya paints and stuff like that. And again, I didn't really need to use a paint booth because, you know, it's just the volatilities and stuff like that aren't there. However, I did find out it doesn't quite work that well. Okay, so now here comes the fun part. Time for decals or decals, wherever you happen to be from. So we have, it lied to me, I think, when I did some measurements. Okay, I've printed out some decals. But some of them look like they're not going to fit because they lied on the size that they were. And I see that my colors ran a little bit too. Yeah, and unfortunately, that one's too big. That's not how it's supposed to go. It's like those might be hydraulically run, where these have got to go on the outsides. So it's, I don't know if you guys can see this. There is a little drive motor sort of thing going on here. Let's focus. A little drive motor here that sticks out. And apparently the way that it's supposed to go is a drive motor there. It should be facing backwards when it's installed. So these should all go in those positions. So there is an option when you're doing colors, right? Sometimes you can do them with decals. Sometimes you can just paint them on. And then sometimes they have paintbrushes that you can use. So these two strips right here, I'm going to wind up cutting out a lot of this. We're going to go ahead and detail those two little red strips. Plus, I also have to have a little emergency button. So we're going to try to put a little emergency button down over there. This is kind of fun because I got to use my magnifier and see if I can't get into the area that I want to get into without blocking you guys up. Oh, well. Okay, so what I'm using here is a Sharpie paint pen. So this isn't your normal Sharpie. It's actually got paint in it. It takes a lot sometimes to get the thing going. It's got kind of a broader tip than I wanted to, but you could actually get a finer tip. I'm just sitting over there putting some little red dots on some of the controllers. Then here we've got a nice little raised area. It's kind of cool because since it is raised, all you got to do is just let it flow over top of the raised area and keep your hand nice and steady. And just take it slow and you can go right over top of it. This is really easier than doing it, than getting the spray gun out, taping everything off. And if you're really slow, you can do this. If you've got guides, you can do this. It makes it a little bit easier. So this one's kind of got guides. So this next part that I had to do doesn't have any guides. And I looked around for some of my military decals and some other things, and I couldn't find what I wanted. So I just decided, well, let's just put the V on also with the paint. The good thing about the paint, because it is paint, if you mess it up or something like that, you can either wipe it off or you can go ahead and paint over it again and it's not going to be as bad. So, I know this is a little bit longer than I wanted it to be in this area. Sorry about that. I did speed this up, but I thought when I was actually taping this that it was on time lapse. So, but you see here, I went ahead and put in a little V on the front. I found out later by looking at these and doing all the research that it looks like they use those to ensure that the operator knows which way he's going, right? Because these legs actually go all over the place. They go out, they go up, they go down, they turn around. So it makes it a lot more easier for the operator who's up there trying to figure out which way it's going. So here I am trying to do the harder stripe. This one just barely has a marking where it's supposed to go. So I was a little worried about how straight I could actually get it on that big of an open area. So I went ahead and put some tape in there. Now, that was a good thing. The bad thing was this is still a paint pen. So you'll see here in a minute, unfortunately, I didn't really press it down hard.
I didn't seal the end of the tape. So because this is paint, I got it to run. Again, the good thing is you saw how I was able to just do a nice straight line. It's really easy when you have to do a short one.
Oops. So let me try a little touch up. So we're going to have to go back and redo the decals. And once I get the decals done, then we should be able to come in and finish off what I need to do.
Okay, so here's the nice little touch-up brushes, right? I used the same exact paint again. Unfortunately, this was an airbrush paint, which means that they thinned it out to begin with. But the nice thing is it flowed easily. Even though you see me go back and forth a lot to get some paint on there, I was trying to put it on heavy enough to cover it. I actually had to go over this with a couple of coats. But again, if you just hold yourself nice and steady and sometimes rest your hand on something, you can just cover it up. So I had to do this touch up. I looked at the little triangles that were on the feet. I wound up doing those. Just I did lots and lots of touch up. The cool thing is this paint really, really sucked in to everything and covered really well. So I am really, really impressed with this Model Master. I believe that's who it is, the Model Master paint. And the construction yellow, really good. The pigmentation was great on it, and it had very, very heavy coverage, especially when you're using it with a brush, as it's set up as airbrush paint. So again, I wanted to touch it up to make it look better. So it's kind of my model. I really thought it was good, and little things like this, like even with your model railroad and all that, the little things matter. So doing this type of detail work is what makes the model really stand out in the end. Okay, so I'm just about finished with that, and I've got a little bit more touch up I've got to do, and then we're going to move on to finish building this thing. Oh, and of course, since I touched it up with the yellow paint, I did too much. So with a little bit more skill with the paint pen, I had to go back up and do some more touch up. So this is kind of the tedious part, right? Again, you have to make it to the way that you like it. I could have just put yellow over top of this again and then just said the heck with it. But I think with the tiny little brushes that I had, it made it look a lot better.
We are going to allow this to keep drying. Well, let's go ahead and put the final on there. Just see how that works. Put those on. So remember, these have got to be facing the correct way. The funny thing is that you got to remember these go 360 degrees, so they can really spin around. So I guess part of the coloration on there is so the operator can tell where his feet are actually going. Okay. Can we pick him up a little? I might be able to. We might, Rabbit. We might. Come on. Come on. There's always one that works so much better than the rest. And he's always the problem one because he's the one that's going to break first. Okay, that's what they call transportation mode. So let's see what we got. We're going to come down here. We're going to look at this guy from this side. That's what she's going to look like. Pick it up. We're going to turn this around. I don't know where my turntable's at. We'll do a better view when I get the rest of the decals on. See that red stripe? You can't tell it that well. That's what it would look like from that side. Go over here. Nice little pan. Those stripes came out really, really nice. Okay. I just got to go reprint those decals and then we'll finish this model off. Right, so today, hopefully, is the final portion of this build. I made some of my own decals. This wasn't too hard. It's just a word program. The font was fairly easy to kind of match. And we're going to try this new way to do decals where you wet this foam and you set the decals down on top of it. This is new decal paper too, so I want to see how that works. So let's see how this all goes. This is my micro sol and my micro set. Every time I do these, I always have to read because I forget which one you use. So improves adhesion, and it's a decal remover. On the model where the decal is to be applied, then dip the decal in water, slide the backing paper into position. Carefully brush more micro set on the top of the decal. The micro sol, part one of this two-step system. On the model where the decal is to be applied, then dip the decal. Using a soft brush, gently apply micro sol onto the decal, being careful. So what's the difference between these two? Wait a few minutes for the decal to soften. Oops. Okay, so I stopped reading and got back to where I wanted to be at. Let's get a little bit more light on this. So, job is micro set first, then micro sol afterwards. So we are going to do the harder ones first. The bad thing is I got to see that these actually fit where they're supposed to go. Now, since they're homemade decals, you really got to cut them as close to where they're supposed to be as possible. I've also tried a new paper, and so we're going to see if this paper works. This is going to actually be cheaper to get for people who want to make their own than it is to buy it in the store. So that one is going to fit, which is what I had my problem with last time, is that I didn't have a big enough word. This one I like. It's a little bit bigger than that so you can see it. So we're going to set that there. Now, you're just supposed to set the decal on the top of it and wait for it to reply. So we're going to get a little bit of micro set, put some on here. I'm doing the whole face of this because there's also a GP3 that needs to go on there, so we will put that on at the same time. And I did a bad thing because I did not cut the actual full size of the decal that I needed. So that's going to have some overage. So I'm going to go in and recut that one. Okay, again, just set that on there. Pick this up. So the theory is that the decal should set on top of the water and it'll be ready to go as soon as it basically floats, right? So in other words, when the paper is all wet, the decal will be ready to go. But again, since this doesn't have a film all the way around it, you got to make sure that you get it the right way. See how GP3 is going. No, it's not quite ready yet. No, it's coming off though. I can see it now. we're going to do this first set to see how it all comes out. I mean, this is a pretty nice thin layer. I also sometimes use the tip of my knife. Okay. That's good. That came off nicely. Now, sometimes it's easier to move these around and set them straight with a knife first. That's weird. That's actually taking some of the microsols, taking off some of the paint, which should be underneath a nice little... Okay, this is ready to go. Take that off. A little knife. We're going to do that. So it says to put a little bit more on there, but I'm a little afraid because it seems that the microsol is cutting through some of my paint. That's never good. So we're going to pretty much dry brush this. And perhaps I put too much on. So yeah. We are going to let that kind of dry in place, because I see that I am getting some paint off of there. So we're going to let that go. And this has dried for over 24 hours. So it's a good thing to know. The microsol is a bit picky on this paint, which is the model master. So you got to watch out for that. Okay, so that doesn't look too bad though. We will come over and do some touch up on that as needed. I think that all of this has gotten down. Yeah, that's kind of still floating. Might need a little bit of paper behind it. Okay, so we're not going to touch that too much. So I got that side done. Now I'm going to go ahead and do fast forward and do the rest of the sides.
Okay, so now I'm putting on the rest of the decals. So this decal paper that I used, I actually got off of Amazon. It's meant for just regular hobbies and things like that. So it came out really nice. It was 8.5 by 11 paper.
Okay, so those are the decals applied on, as you saw, and I had some difficulties. So we've got the fronts, and you can see the GP3s on both sides, or that's the operator side actually. The front, and then those GPs, we've got it on the two side beams. That's the way that the drawing shows it. We got the red stripes on there that we wanted to, so those are doing good. Okay, the only thing that I didn't do, which you guys saw me, I struggled with, there's a yellow right in this area. There would be a yellow decal that goes in there. Apparently my yellow wasn't very dark enough and you couldn't see it, so it's a tough thing to get in there. So I decided not to do it at all. So all I have to do now is spray this with dull coat after the solve set finishes setting, and this will be done.
And here is the final product. You can see all the red's taken up, decals are put on. It's not that shiny or anything like that. This came out really good. It's a great product. It has wonderful detail. It took a little bit of time, but I like it. It's a unique piece. I want to thank Model Mechanic and Shapeways for making this and being able to bring this to life. I just really enjoyed building this. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. Um, and it's going to be a unique piece somewhere on my layout or as a standalone. So I just want to say thanks everybody for watching. Sorry this was a long video. This is Steve87 saying I hope you enjoyed this. Watch, subscribe, like, pass it on to others. I hope you guys have a good day, and we will make something else and post it up too. Steve87 saying goodbye.